The top story is one Donald Trump can't escape as he caps the worst start to a month of his second term. From the Dem wins to the Epstein email explosion this week, he is having a tough November. These new Epstein emails have upended the White House, and they're only getting worse because it takes time, even in our rapid information environment, for journalists and politicos and any citizen who wants to look and go through these 20,000 emails. All of this started when Democrats used their power to push the envelope and release some of the emails, the ones they said showed why Trump is hiding, as they demand a vote to release them all. Republicans got mad, remember, in the week and said, oh, well, we'll release more. And so what started with 3 emails turned to 20,000. Tonight, I have more details on how it's all going, because this is a vast tranche of documents, of emails, that many people clearly, from the way they were typing to Epstein, thought would stay secret forever. Epstein made the biggest news, perhaps, from the grave, so to speak, with his now unearthed statement to Maxwell, a sex trafficker convicted and in prison right now, that, of course, Trump knew about the girls. Donald Trump has denied any wrongdoing and has very specifically tried to deny that he knew what Epstein was exactly up to, although the Trump story on that has changed, and that is getting new scrutiny right now. There is also how the Trump DOJ has dealt with Maxwell and her controversial interview with a former Trump defense lawyer who now is paid by your tax dollars to do the people's business at the Trump DOJ. But it looks like Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche may not have been doing the people's business. We'll get to that. But in this exchange from 2011, Epstein wrote to Maxwell Trump was spending, quote, hours at his house with one of the victims. Maxwell said she's been thinking about that, as they said that Trump was a dog that didn't bark. That matters for many reasons, but specifically whether Deputy Attorney General Blanche is worried about later professional sanctions or misconduct or even potentially being disbarred if this is part of a larger cover-up. It obviously contradicts what Maxwell apparently falsely claimed, with no repercussions yet, when she had her cozy interview with Deputy Attorney General Blanche just months ago.
I think they were friendly, like people are in social settings. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance.
Something she suddenly says she didn't recall when the emails say she did. If the Trump DOJ were on the level, and this is now public, at a minimum, they would go deal with this with her. At a maximum, remember, even when you're in prison, if you mislead the federal government, if you provide false statements to a federal officer, that could be a new crime. And yet they're not obviously doing anything like that. They're giving her special treatment and a puppy in prison, and we'll get to that. Blanche says that for some reason, quote, law enforcement didn't have those emails when he did the interview. As I've reported to you, he said, when I interviewed Maxwell, quote, law enforcement didn't have the materials Epstein's estate, quote, hid for years and only provided to Congress. That statement is highly suspicious, and it is now getting debunked by the Epstein estate, which says we hadn't received any requests from DOJ in recent years, emphasis on recent years, I'll come back to that, but they say, and these are the ones who have been lately more transparent, of course, working for the Epstein estate sounds controversial, but Epstein's dead. These are the people who manage the estate. These are lawyers who have their own obligations. They are the ones who provided these emails. So they might have more credibility than Mr. Blanche right now. And they say tonight it's inaccurate for Blanche and Trump DOJ to assert the estate has hidden anything. And let me tell you a bit more about that. You might say, okay, Ari, with everything going on, why are we diving into a debate between anonymous lawyers or random obscure lawyers at the Epstein estate and the Deputy Attorney General? Well, the Deputy Attorney General is responding because he's under pressure. The interview, many legal experts have said, looked suspicious at the time. Now it looks like outright cover-up, potential misconduct. And so he says law enforcement didn't have the materials. He tries to go after the Epstein estate. Maybe he didn't realize they would come back at him. They're saying his whole defense that they hid anything is wrong, is inaccurate. Another word for that would be a lie if they think he knows that it's inaccurate. But more to the point, they didn't use the underlying original nonpartisan career prosecutors who led the Maxwell case. That was suspicious. I pointed that out at the time. Those prosecutors probably know every
The fallout from the release of new emails from the Epstein estate continues, and now a Supreme Court justice has found himself embroiled in this mess. As you probably know, earlier this week, the House Oversight Committee released a trove of emails and other messages provided by the estate of notorious sex trafficker and Donald Trump bestie, Jeffrey Epstein. The information contained within them both contradicted. Before we get to this breaking story, however, we need a bit of background. One of Donald Trump's lasting legacies in this country, or one of his scars, if you prefer, is his appointments to the Supreme Court. Among them, the controversial appointment of Brett Kavanaugh, a proud booze hound accused of attempted assault. Here's a refresher.
I felt that I couldn't not do it.
Dr. Christine Blasey Ford testifying that as a teenager, a drunken Brett Kavanaugh pinned her to the bed, attempted removing her clothes, and covered her mouth as she tried to scream.
This is what terrified me the most and has had the most lasting impact on my life. It was hard for me to breathe, and I thought that Brett was accidentally going to kill me.
An outside prosecutor pressed Ford on details of her accusations, but for Kavanaugh...
This has destroyed my family and my good name.
For Kavanaugh, it was senators who did the questioning.
This is not a job interview.
Yeah.
This is hell.
Apologies for any icky memories that clip brings up. And if you're mad now revisiting the Kavanaugh hearings, you might want to lock up all the dishes in your china hutch. It does get worse. Newly released emails from the Epstein estate have raised the specter of Kavanaugh's hearings and the accusations against him once more. As it turns out, Jeffrey Epstein played a pivotal role in the White House campaign against Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and in getting Brett Kavanaugh appointed to the High Court. The New Republic now reports that amid the Epstein email trove, members of Congress have also uncovered text messages from Epstein to Steve Bannon, an advisor to Donald Trump. You'll recall that Bannon served as chief of staff in the first Trump term before getting canned a few months into his tenure. That doesn't mean he stopped advising Trump, however, nor does it mean he severed all ties with the White House. These new messages reveal that Epstein told Bannon to disseminate information about a medication that Blasey Ford took that could have impeded her memory. It breaks down like this. Unless you question the authenticity of this conversation, the House Oversight Committee has released it. See?
The recent and massive release of documents from Jeffrey Epstein archives has overshadowed the early month of the current administration and has intensified the existing tension in the politics circles, right? So the documents, which are in the thousands, came out of a legislative campaign that started with the revolving of starting from the few documents, right, and ended in a complete disclosure, right? So for those who are following the progress of high profile investigation, this development is like the slow unrevolving, like the different time of complex legal matters where even the first glimpse like show the interconnection among the influential people, the flood of material that were through to be the private for a long time. It is not just about the individual's name mentioned, but also about the fact that such affiliation, but also for examining the present state of information management. One might ask, is this age of digital communication, how much longer, right? How much longer record can take from one buried before the public demand bring them to the surface? The navigational skills required to copy with the fallout are evolving consideration of the immediate pressure again long-term implication for the accused. The implication of these revolutions might lead to internal review or changes in policy, which would in turn lead to the strengthening of the oversight mechanism in federal agencies. On the other hand, the risk division exhibition as different views ignite discussions over intentions and involvement. The prosecutor's delayed balance can be clearly illustrated in the situation. Their decisions to act or not to act more either build confidence in institutional integrity or drive people further away from it. So the future might necessitate engaging independent authorities to accelerate time frame and to evaluate the importance of this event. One can post cases of private conversations among the elite being scrutinized as examples, such as the slow uncoupling of various financial